In a dramatic twist in the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia, President Donald Trump has presented a comprehensive 28-point peace plan to Ukraine, which has sent shockwaves through international diplomacy. The plan, introduced by the United States, has placed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in an incredibly difficult position, balancing the future of his country's sovereignty with the potential for a ceasefire that could bring an end to the devastating conflict. The core of the proposal demands significant territorial concessions from Ukraine, limitations on its military, and the renunciation of its NATO ambitions. In exchange, the United States promises a NATO-style security guarantee for Ukraine, which would act as a safeguard in the event of future Russian aggression. However, the deal comes with a stark deadline set by President Trump for Thanksgiving Day, giving Zelensky and his government a limited amount of time to decide whether they will accept or reject these conditions. As the clock ticks down, President Zelensky has publicly stated that his country is committed to peace, but he has also made it clear that Ukraine cannot and will not abandon its core national interests. Ukrainian officials have conveyed that any peace deal must respect Ukraine's territorial integrity and its sovereignty. In the face of immense pressure from the US to sign the deal, President Zelensky has expressed a sense of calm determination, stressing that Ukraine will not make any rash decisions or act impulsively. "We will not make any loud statements," Zelensky said. "We will work calmly with America and all our partners. We will definitely not give the enemy any reason to say that Ukraine does not want peace, that it is disrupting the process, and that Ukraine is not ready for diplomacy." The terms of the 28-point peace plan have caused intense debate in Ukraine and abroad. The most controversial aspects of the proposal are the territorial concessions that Ukraine would be required to make to Russia, including areas in the Donbass region and potentially other contested territories. Additionally, the plan would restrict the size of Ukraine's military, limiting its ability to defend itself in the future. Perhaps most difficult of all for Ukraine's leadership, the plan demands that Ukraine abandon its pursuit of NATO membership, something that has been a key goal of Ukraine for many years, especially since Russia's invasion. Despite the heavy demands, the plan does include a significant incentive for Ukraine in the form of a NATO-style security guarantee. This would provide Ukraine with a form of protection similar to the Article 5 Mutual Defence Clause in NATO, but without full membership in the alliance. The US has framed this as a key element of the deal that could help offset the negative aspects, offering Ukraine a sense of security while still remaining outside NATO's formal structure. However, Ukrainian leaders are deeply skeptical of these promises, and many are concerned that the security guarantee is not a sufficient substitute for full NATO membership, which they see as the ultimate guarantee of their nation's security in the face of Russia's continued aggression. The offer of security guarantees has been described as a sweetener by some senior US officials, but in Ukraine, it is viewed with caution. Leaders in Kyiv worry that the proposal could be a short-term fix that fails to address the long-term risks posed by Russia's territorial ambitions. President Putin of Russia has responded to the peace plan in his usual blunt manner, welcoming the proposal but making it clear that he sees Ukraine's consent as the next hurdle. Putin has publicly stated that he believes the US plan could serve as the basis for a final peaceful settlement, but he also noted that it had not been discussed in detail with Russia and that Ukraine's agreement is critical for the plan to succeed. "I believe that it can be used as the basis of a final peaceful settlement," Putin said, "but it has not been discussed with us in detail. The US administration has so far failed to secure Ukraine's consent. Ukraine is against it." Putin's remarks indicate that Russia sees this peace plan as an opportunity to secure its gains in Ukraine, particularly in the Donbass and Crimea, and to formalize these territorial changes through a peace agreement. The Kremlin has long held the view that Ukraine should be neutral and not seek alignment with NATO, and the terms of the 28-point plan align closely with these demands. However, Putin's public optimism about the plan is tempered by the knowledge that Ukraine's leadership has not yet signed off on the deal. President Trump, for his part, has framed the peace deal in stark, urgent terms, warning that the window of opportunity for Ukraine is closing rapidly. In his remarks, Trump emphasized that Ukraine faces an agonizing choice: either agree to the deal now or face even greater losses later. They can either concede territory now or they can concede it later once even more Ukrainians have perished, Trump said. They will lose in a short period of time. The whole of Donbass, they're losing land. We're in it for one thing. We want the killing to stop. You know, they lost 25,000 people last month between the two countries. 25,000 people. It's out of control. It's a bloodbath. The starkness of Trump's words underscores the high stakes involved for Ukraine. With each passing day, casualties continue to mount on both sides, and the human toll of the war becomes increasingly evident. The US president's comments suggest that the urgency to bring the conflict to a close is growing, and that the peace plan is seen as the best available option for halting the bloodshed. Ukrainian leaders, however, are not willing to accept any deal that would undermine the country's long-term security. Zelensky's commitment to maintaining Ukraine's sovereignty has remained unwavering, even as he faces enormous external pressure to compromise. Despite the difficult choices ahead, Ukraine's leadership is committed to finding a diplomatic solution, but it is also clear that any deal must respect Ukraine's territorial integrity and national interests. As the Thanksgiving deadline looms, the international community is watching closely to see how Ukraine will respond to the US peace plan. The outcome of this diplomatic negotiation will have far-reaching implications not only for Ukraine, but for the broader geopolitical landscape in Europe and beyond. If Ukraine accepts the deal, it could mark the beginning of a new chapter in the conflict, one that sees the war winding down, but with significant territorial and military compromises. If Ukraine rejects the plan, the war could drag on, with even greater destruction and loss of life. The situation is further complicated by the fact that Europe's response to the peace plan has been less than enthusiastic. Many European leaders are cautious about forcing Ukraine into a deal that could erode its sovereignty and independence. Some in Europe have expressed concerns that the plan may be too favorable to Russia and that it could set a dangerous precedent for future conflicts. While the US has been pushing hard for a resolution to the conflict, many European countries are urging a more balanced approach that takes into account Ukraine's long-term security and its aspirations for a democratic and independent future. For now, President Zelensky has maintained a calm and composed public stance, insisting that Ukraine will not act hastily. He has emphasized the importance of working with the US and other international partners, but he has also made it clear that Ukraine's position will not be dictated by external pressure. We will definitely not give the enemy any reason to say that Ukraine does not want peace, Zelensky has stated. We will work calmly with America and all our partners. Ultimately, the decision that Ukraine faces in the coming days will be one of the most consequential in its history. The outcome of this peace negotiation will determine not only the future of Ukraine, but also the broader balance of power in Europe. As the deadline approaches, the world watches with bated breath to see how President Zelensky and his government will navigate this perilous moment. Will they accept a peace plan that many see as a compromise, or will they hold out for a better deal, risking further bloodshed and uncertainty? The next chapter of the Ukraine conflict is about to unfold, and the world will be watching closely.